So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar on ESG developments and solutions to boost your organizational immune system. Firstly, we hope that you, your colleagues, families and friends are healthy and remain helpful during these testing COVID times. My name is Bogdan and I am Business Development Manager in BDO Advisory Team. Our speaker today is our partner for Environmental, Social and Governance Solutions, Mr. Henning Drager. He will introduce to you exciting fields of ESG and what solution BDO can offer to you. And the next slide. A few housekeeping rules for today's webinar. This webinar will be recorded. We will share the slide deck with you after the webinar. We will be running 2 polls in the chat in the form of question with multiple choices for your consideration. So please be proactive. And finally, if you have any question during the webinar, please type them into the chat and in the end of the webinar, we will reveal it. Now, let us begin. And our ESG partner solution, Drager Henning, please.
Hello, a wonderful good morning from Kiev, Ukraine to all of you. We really appreciate your time. It's very exceptional, some people say unprecedented times for all of you. So for you to be here today, we really do appreciate it. And thank you, Bogdan, and the whole team for putting this together. I want to just extend my best wishes to all of you in these times, to you, your family, your colleagues, and your loved ones. Terrible times, what's happening, no matter where we are around the world. So I hope that today we can talk maybe about a positive development. And that is that ESG, environmental, social, and governance, can have a positive impact on your business immune system. And so we would like to outline maybe what the key drivers are for those developments. And secondly, what kind of solutions we at BDO have been working many years to develop so that you can consult them and see whether that can help you going forward. As you can see from this slide, ESG is my passion, has been over 22 years. I've worked in a number of markets in a number of countries, and again, very pleased to come to you from Kiev, Ukraine today. Our presentation today has 4 building blocks. I think before we move on to the ESG solutions themselves and what the developments are, we cannot move forward until we understand where we are and what the impacts are on, in particular, the business world. There are many other worlds. There's obviously the whole government world and our civil society, but I'd really like to focus on what the impacts are on business that we see around the world, in particular in Ukraine, and what we then can do about it by applying the solutions. Secondly, not many of you might have heard of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Let me give you a quick primer on what it is and what impact it might have on your organizational immunity and the way you conduct your business. Thirdly, the toolbox that we've developed that is available to you, whether you're a small, medium-sized enterprise, a large multinational, a public sector organization, or family-owned business. We've got something for everyone. And lastly, for dessert, so to speak, we obviously open up this call for your questions, which you submit through the chat function, as well as opening up your microphone if there's time available to ask me any questions. And then we have a competition at the end that if you would be so kind to deliver your email address to us, we will draw one lucky winner who will win some free ESG vitamins from us at BDO. So let's get started. So I don't know about you, but if I look at the COVID-19 crisis, if I look at the existing climate change impacts and those that are predicted for our global societies, if I look at the disruption the financial crisis caused 10 years on, our ever complex and increasing supply chain, and as an ecologist by training, the incredible amount of air, water, and land pollution, plastics being obviously a big topic at the moment. And then we have the lovely Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who obviously brought into all of our consciousness that we must do better. And these are all systemic challenges. And we at BDO, being often called an advisor for the future, we're in the business of trying to provide solutions for organizations of any kind to those systemic solutions. And we believe, and that's what I would like to talk to you about, yes, there are many other solutions. There are financial solutions, tax solutions, audit solutions, and BDO also provides them. But I'd like to narrow our focus of discussion this morning just by talking about the E, S, and the G, how we and our solution in partnership with you can move forward to hopefully a more hopeful and more prosperous way out of those systemic challenges we're all facing. And I bumped into this particular slide playing with my 6-year-old the other day. Operation, I don't know, depending on how young or how old, you're obviously all young, you are. This is basically a game where a patient, a bit like the COVID-19 patient, whether you're a business or a global society, is lying down and is quite ill. So the doctor, the frontline worker, is trying to insert different solution in order to make that patient better. And if you get a little bit too close with the tool that you're using by putting in the different bones or organs, the nose will chime red. And I feel a little bit this is where we are at the moment with COVID-19. We're all running around trying to find solution. We would like some certainty. We're looking for ways out of it. We know a big negative impact is coming. We are realists, not fantasists. But how and what processes are we putting in place as businesses? What risk screens do we have in place so that the patient, who clearly is down but not quite out yet, will recover? And then, of course, and I am not qualified enough, I'm not an economist by training, there's the double whammy for many businesses and industries around the dropping oil price, although that has recovered a little bit over the past few weeks. Now we have a situation that oil is cheap, or much cheaper than it was before, and yet we cannot fly, we cannot travel. Most people, because of quarantine, cannot travel to work or go on holiday. So there's a supply and a demand pincer movement, which impacts the economic productivity within society, within which businesses operate and consumers obviously spend. So we unfortunately have been hit by two things at once. And that, of course, meant for many of our businesses, they had to close, including us at BDO. Not that we should go on about that. We have been furlonged out to work from home so that we can use digital communication so that business goes on despite our physical premises being shut. That is obviously not an option for many manufacturing businesses. And there we've seen different solutions from around the world. But our business breath has suddenly come to a halt globally. And that is the reality we face at the moment. And that this is our starting point for the recovery. And I'll just give you a few snapshots of what's actually been happening in Ukraine as we are based in Ukraine. And that is our GDP is forecast to drop between 4 or worst case scenarios from the National Bank, 9%. We've had a number of crises over the past decades. And although we are very well versed, this is exactly the wrong period for the country and for the businesses to get even lower economic growth. Secondly, there's great anxiety amongst society, which are also consumers and workers. How long will the money last? 57% of Ukrainians feel that they don't have enough money beyond 4 weeks if the quarantine should last way beyond May. Our government has lifted some restrictions, but that obviously impacts the willingness and the motivation perhaps of people to go back to work and give their all if these fears are quite real. And then, as our heartblood is the small, medium-sized enterprise, just this staggering number of 700,000 SMEs employing over 4 million people in Ukraine being shut is something that's just incredible and unprecedented even for us since wartime, I believe. So we really need to find a way to ease these back in and get productivity going. When you then look at some opinion polls with which certain organizations in Ukraine have done, 65% of Ukrainian business believe that you can scratch the 2020 goals, KPIs, and performance indicators. 48% of businesses are pessimistic about keeping the 2020 headcount. with again the brunt of these negative predictions coming from the SME quarters. And here are just a number of impacts which we have researched and obviously get feedback from our clients on what are they most worried about. Human health, obviously the physical health, health and safety, not contracting the virus, as well as the mental ones. How am I supported? Will I get paid? Do I have to take unpaid leave? It's at the top of mind. We've never been quarantined. We want to go around. We are in different cultures. Some of us are quite happy to work from home. Some of us are quite new to this. We might be confused. Our IT system, digital readiness might not be there. The cyber security for work, many people working from home now is not given. Then, of course, I don't have to tell you, you're worrying about the money. Where's the money going to come from? My revenue is dropping. I have to shut my shop. My fixed costs continue to work. I'm a business center. I pay rent. I have electricity costs. My supply chains, in particular, if it goes into China or they're quite long, how will they be impacted now that my manufacturing base is completely disrupted and transport, whether by air, by plane, or by train or truck, cannot secure delivery on time? And what about investments? Will governments, will supranational bodies still invest in Ukraine and other businesses now that they have huge holes in their budgets? Or how can I plan? What kind of security have I got? So we are totally aware of the health impacts, and it's a really bitter cocktail at this point when we thought we saw some recovery after the financial crisis, for sure. But as I said, interestingly, talking about environmental, social, and governance, there are some offshoots because we believe in the glass being half full. One of the offshoots that we've seen is due to less industrial production and less transport, trucking, driving to work, we've seen and this I've just taken two examples from New York and Paris, we've seen a market improvement of the air quality, not only in our cities, but across whole regions, that people can breathe easier, that they actually can see the skies, whether they're in the industrial heartlands of China or whether they are in the big cities in Europe and the United States. And obviously CO2 being connected to man-made climate change, we are seeing a reduction, I believe, globally around 25 to 30% of annual output. So if we're talking about meeting our climate change targets and our commitments going forward, we've made quite a big dent. Let's not talk about if we start it up again, if we recompensate. The other thing that I thought was interesting is, did you know that solar power production has increased by up to 30% because of the cleaner air? As you know, rays come down, they get reflected off clouds and particles, but the solar power generation in Europe and the United States and South America as a continent has increased up to 30% due to the lack of pollution. So there's another offshoot. Thirdly, and I mentioned it before, we have many asthmatics, people that are affected by nitrous oxide pollution, and we see a reduction of this gas by up to 40%, in particular in the Asian and European market, which can only help asthma sufferers and hopefully improve human health, which has positive impacts, obviously, on business. And forgive me, I had to put in this slide. I'm an ecologist by training. And what we see when we look at environmental tracking, we see wildlife returning. Not only when you go through parks, when you do your 1 hour exercise in the UK, you see the quality and the quantity of songbirds, or in this case, a coyote in San Francisco returning. And people really love this. You can just look at Instagram and Facebook. People really enjoy, if and when they can go out, the return of maybe a slower life and enjoying their space, which is normally just humans and buildings, being shared more with the natural world. To me, very, very positive impact. And last but not least, maybe more technical and more to what we want to discuss today. We've talked about digitization for 10, 15 years. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. I think now it's on steroids. We know that Zoom, MS Teams, WebEx, these solutions have really revolutionized the way we start communicating with each other. We're looking at companies who have taken the crisis now as an opportunity. Look at, for instance, telehealth. There are a number of providers now, and in the healthcare and the pharmaceutical sector, which are providing, and they have done before the crisis, but now more than ever, they are doing free consultation if you download their app on simple symptoms that you might have. So you don't have to wait in your hospital or wait for a long-awaited appointment for your general practitioner. We also see an explosion in learning, and this is not just our kids playing games at home or Fortnite, whatever it might be, really a huge interest of professional development and maybe acquiring new skills, acquiring skills of new apps and technologies that we might need when we come back physically to work, or indeed if we stay at home and want to contribute, if we can, positively to the value creation of our company. And then we've got something, I don't know about you, I'm a big pizza fan, and I not that there are other brands available, obviously. Domino's Pizza were the first big chain to have contactless delivery. They basically made a virtue out of that. They would only deliver doing certain safety protocols. They've got this pedestal, I believe, where they put it down so you pick it up and it's all cleaned, and they give you free sanitizer. And then the last one, that's obviously another thing. All events are canceled, mass gatherings are canceled, everything's going online, whether it's Formula One, whether it's NASCAR racing, whether it's NBA. And here's an opportunity for event organizers which can switch to a digital platform like online gaming, for instance. Big stadiums normally filled with big fans. These are taking the opportunity to win new audiences online as we spend more time online. So to me, that all goes into one thing: digitization. We know about it, we've talked about it. Now it's really become a reality. And those who do not adopt, they will be challenged going forward, is my belief. But enough about my insights and about our research. I would just quickly turn over to Bogdan and ask you, how are you doing? How do you feel? How positive? How negative? Very briefly, do you feel you are when you look towards the period beyond COVID-19? If we could take a minute, and Bogdan, you could maybe quickly explain how that works on the chat function. I would really love to see the results. Thank you.
Okay, Henning. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to provide a brief commentary and to vote for the first question. Please go to the chat.
Bogdan, just to check, do I need to show my screen so that our audience can see it too?
No.
Okay, brilliant.
Just using the chat. And
if you could tell me the results, Bogdan, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. After a minute, I think.
That's correct.
So I see first answers. The question is, how confident do you feel about your organization future post-COVID? More confident, less confident, or the same? Please go to chat and vote.
Okay, Bogdan, have you got some results for me?
Yeah, I've got at least 8 answers and 62% points that they are more confident.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, 12% point that they are less confident, and 25% point that it is the same.
Well, all I can say is you've clearly all subscribed to the BDO school of the glass is half full and that a crisis presents an opportunity. Obviously, how realistic that is and how much certainty we can all deal with going forward over the next few weeks or months is one thing, but Believe me when I say to you that if you work with us at BDO, and not just our services in general, there's a positive, optimistic beat. And we try still to be realist, but we need to find a solution out of this, despite the lower funding, despite the lower budgets being available. And that's what we want to talk to you about. So very encouraging by that. Thank you very much, Bogdan. Let me then move on. One of the things that we did when COVID-19 hit, we basically asked our clients, what would you like to know? What's on your mind? And as you can see from this slide, obviously what financial help is available, any legal implications, any audit implications. Will the deadline for audit be moved by the regulator? If I have furlonged my staff to work at home, when should they come back? In which way can I prepare my working space when they're coming back? What opportunities are available post COVID-19? And the last one at the bottom is something we heard again and again. What measures, and not just financial measures, but in our case now non-financial measures, can I take to strengthen both my resilience, so my immune system, if you'd like, and my agility going forward? Can I take advantage of it? And today we want to talk about how ESG can contribute to both strengthening your resilience and hopefully make your organization more agile alongside the other solutions that BDO offers and the challenges that you have. And we believe one of the things that you should consider is something that has been in play for a long, long time, is the whole component of ESG. Now, I could obviously have another poll now asking who's heard of ESG. Let me just quickly run through what ESG is. ESG originated in the financial industry. It was a way of trying to score listed companies' environmental, social, and governance behavior. So in addition to financial analysis and financial calculations and metrics, they developed an ESG metrics. That then pervaded the remaining advisory and environmental and societal space, where we basically looked at the traditional model of corporate social responsibility, which is who are my stakeholders, how much money can I give to a project, how about the well-being of my staff, and who is my community, combined with the sustainability agenda, which obviously has been on the global agenda since the 1980s, where we just look at environmental factors like energy and emissions, resource management. We talk a lot about green office and responsible purchasing, fair trade and organic, and we've of course got the huge United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. If you combine the two, you actually get a step change, and that's what we call environmental, social, and governance. Why? Because it starts trying to put metrics on your social, environmental, and governance risks and opportunity. So an integrated measurement, management, and reporting. It provides additional transparency because most of you have to provide financial statements, profit and loss, balance sheet. On the ESG side, that's mostly voluntary, but we see a drive from regulators as well as proactive businesses to try to apply the same way to use metrics on the non-financial, the ESG side, as the financial side. So it's a way of costing your risks and creating resilience, because it might be that a non-financial risk has financial risks which you currently do not know about, let alone report. And very important, we all love data. It really tries to, I wouldn't say monetize, but it tries to visualize the non-financial impacts that certain actions or inactions might have. And that's probably why the investors like it so much, because they can try to put it in a spreadsheet and see whether they can make a financial calculation. Yep. So that's a quick primer on ESG. So what's driving it? Well, there's obviously a number of policy initiatives and opinions before COVID, but we believe at BDO also after. And I've just given you a little snapshot of what the different continents, different countries have done. In Ukraine, we talk very much about energy efficiency. We need a much better energy generation, much more lower carbon generation, and a better transmission. We talk about how we might integrate the Sustainable Development Goals in our overall framework for reporting from businesses. Obviously, transparency and anti-corruption, very, very big on the agenda of our government. And if we believe that we are looking more and more towards the West, then obviously we would like to adopt EU best practice, not just on VAT, transfer pricing, tax, but very much also on social, environmental, and governance best practices. And if I then go around EU, Americas, Africa, Asia Pacific, and global, there are a number of initiatives which are clearly pushing towards more ESG disclosure, more ESG management. The biggest one that I quickly want to mention, because maybe it's our neighbor, but it's really big, it's the Green Deal that the European Union will be launching. And why is that? That's because the EU's COVID-19 $2 trillion budget and recovery plan, as Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the Commission, has said, is here to not only shore up the balance sheets of companies and local authorities and countries, it's about ensuring a climate-resistant, green, and healthy future for all. Big words, I know. You look in the details, it basically drives forward the whole low-carbon, inclusion, tolerance agenda of the European Union. So giving money to an ailing business will be attached to ESG criteria. And as the as the European Union is the biggest and I would say one of the most progressive blocs in the world, often we see a trickle-down effect to other parts of the world, whether they are developed or not developed, in terms of, isn't that interesting? It's not just about there's no money in the bank, we cannot do ESG. No, actually, we see it as an opportunity to actually strengthen, green our recovery, however long that might take, 10 years, 15 years. Secondly, a number of big profile people and organizations, whether it's the United Nations or the biggest asset manager in the world, have made very positive noises around we cannot disassociate environmental protection, social equity, and true transparent governance from this crisis. It needs to go on, whether you are a listed company, whether you're a small, medium-sized enterprise, and indeed a public sector organization where you have to demonstrate to the taxpayer that you are providing social value for taxpayer money, of course. So that has us believing the initiatives as well as the positive statements, despite the crisis we're currently facing, that the ESG agenda will not be derailed. As some people believe, as you can see from this illustration, if we just focus on the E, the environmental, renewable energy, greening our cities, making them less dependent on fossil fuels. And on the other side, people know we need more industrial production, we need more GDP, we need more traditional growth based on low cost energy. It's not an either or. It's a case of that the progressive voices in the world say, we need both, but it needs to be and cannot be derailed by the COVID-19 virus. There needs to be a concerted effort of governments and leading businesses to move forward and say, we want to promote the ESG agenda and not just hide behind the argument that it will add additional cost burdens. And I believe we at BDO, we agree with that statement. And then I see, of course, a number of really, really positive responses from businesses. And I've given you just 6. I'm sure in your country where you're calling from, you have your own fantastic examples. And just from top left, we've got the first Ukrainian bank, one of our many banks, has provided free corona insurance for 1,500 general practitioners. So they're fully covered, can be flown out and get other services attached should they get ill. That's something that they did on their own volition. They didn't market it very hardly, just a way of businesses, again, demonstrating their corporate responsibility. In the middle, we've got Lysilpool, one of our slightly upmarket supermarkets. They made sure to provide 1 million coronavirus tests free of charge to all the frontline workers and all the hospitals across Ukraine. Then a very interesting, Clorox is a a listed company in the United States which does household products like bleach, and they made their entire library, facility and health and safety library of information available to facility managers around the world. You go to their website, and everything of best practice they had in-house, they made available to not only their customers, but to the whole world. So a huge depository of knowledge, insight from over 50 years of cleaning, disinfecting food and other facilities, making that available. Fantastic. Then we've got British American Tobacco, bottom right, an example of how a tobacco company is trying currently to work with the medical establishment to find a cure based on plant-based vaccines and the components of the traditional tobacco plants. So you wouldn't think that they could step up and actually contribute to that, but they did. Fantastic. We have in Africa a number of companies. This is the Distel company providing sanitizers and spirits. It's an alcohol company, and they basically switched their production immediately from producing gin and other spirits to hand sanitizers. They start in South Africa, delivering it to vulnerable communities and spreading it over the whole continent of Africa. And last but not least, there's a Chinese, and I know there's a lot of discussion around, what is the role of China in businesses. I'd like to focus on the positive example that is being set here. Alibaba, you might all know it. It's probably the Google or the Amazon or the financial fintech giant of China. They created something called the Spring Thunder Initiative. They have such a huge trading platform. They made a lot of services available to small, medium-sized enterprises, not just in China, but surrounding nations, so that they can use the marketplaces, a bit like the Amazon marketplace, free of charge, and they pump in lots of money and business support. So here's an established huge listed company from China trying to help the business community, which they have benefited from for so long, without asking anything in return. So I think, talking again about ESG and corporate responsibility, it's on all of us to really take the high ground here and see how we can help. And it's part of your ESG strategy, clearly, which you can then use in marketing or PR terms, but this is secondary. The first thing is to help where you can with what you've got available, and there are plenty of examples out there. Another way to demonstrate that having an ESG strategy in place also enables these fantastic positive experiences, which hopefully also can boost reputation further. Some of the factors which I've seen when I'm looking down the tickers and the research that we have, what kind of ESG factors exactly have been affected by COVID-19? If you look in the middle, we obviously talk about the health and safety issues. Have we been prepared? Are we putting up screen? What kind of solutions can we provide working from home? Fraud and cybersecurity on the governance side has really increased since COVID-19 has happened. So a lot of solutions are now being developed and precautions and policies written around how a huge number of people working from home can actually be protected so that your company's infrastructure is secure. Whistleblower protection. There have been a number of cases where bad health and safety system have been exposed. How are the policies that you have in place protecting these people stepping forward to prevent even more risks or even more bad headlines? On the environmental side, we talked about health and air. That's obviously a supranational issue, but of course, we'd like to contribute to that as progressive businesses. But what about raw materials? I mean, if you need raw materials or if you need inputs and your supply chain is very long, now it's been disrupted. The globalization is fantastically useful and has benefited many, many people and many businesses. But we are also seeing now, due to this virus, that supply chains can be heavily disrupted, although there is recovery, for instance, out of China now. That might be something that you would like to look at. You look at energy. Where can you make the savings now? Is it in energy? What kind of technology could you install to do that? And I'll get to that in a minute. Or waste. Is there a way now that we are driving down our industrial and our service, our industrial production and services, that we could maybe do something proactive to address the waste that we are creating, and how do we communicate that? So there are a number of things that are clearly connected between taking an ESG approach and the COVID-19 issues. And before I go on and come to the BDO Toolbox, again, I'd love to ask you, when you look around your country, when you look around your industry, what's your experience been of how businesses, including your own business, has stepped up? Has it been proactive, more reactive, or haven't you noticed? So it's neither. I'd really love to hear and maybe give a little commentary. So Bogdan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Henning. Another poll we have. So please go to the chat and do the voting. If you cannot do the voting for the forum, please type it in words. Henning, and we also have some updates for the first poll. We've got 13 answers for the first poll, and the distribution is as follows. 70% is for more confident, 10% is for less confident, and 20% is for the same.
Great, you're getting more positive by the minute. I love it. What about the second one? Have we already got enough responses in to get some indication, Bogdan?
We have the first response, but I need to count it. Just a minute.
That's all right. Thank you so much for participating. That's really helpful.
The voting is still going.
That's all right. I would just say, colleagues, let's take another 30 seconds and then we'll move on, because I'm really interested to maybe start the Q&A section after we present the toolbox. So,
but Henning, one moment. I just can say some preliminary results.
Sure.
So 44 is for proactive, 33 is for reactive, and 22 is neither.
Yeah, so I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't disagree with that. I'm probably trying to dig out the gems, those who are very proactive. Obviously, a lot of businesses are doing the good ESG work unnoticed. They're just doing it as part of their commitment. So if they don't report it or somebody picks it up in social media, then we'll never know about it. So I'm assuming a lot more people than are reported and a lot more companies are doing it. So my impression is proactive 44. Yeah, that's optimistic, I'd say. But this is not a judgment call. This is just from what we can say. But again, an opportunity to take a crisis as a way of extending your support for your stakeholders and your community. And that's what ESG is all about. Thank you, Bogdan. So let us then move on. Last but not least, we've given you an overview of where we are in the COVID crisis. I've tried to talk a little bit about what ESG is and what the drivers are behind ESG. So how do we put these two things together in solutions that you as a business and organization can use? Well, we've split it into the following, again, along the ESG lines. We are splitting into three. What can you do now, and what could we help you with doing right now? Secondly, 3 to 6 months from now, what the solutions, what considerations should you take? And then there's the whole gambit of 2021 and beyond. And this is all about compliance, obviously, with regulations coming from your country's relevant regulator, assessment of the damage or the opportunity, how have your operations or will your operations be affected, and how do you communicate what you would like to achieve, not just with your clients, your customers, but with your staff, with the regulator and other agencies. So let's start with environment. And the way we define environment in BDO is not just the beautiful natural environment, although that's obviously the framework for all of our activities, in this case, the lovely Carpathian Mountains of Ukraine. We believe environmental is very much about our working environment, the human environment as well. And this is what we would like to offer you. I won't go through everything in detail. If you split it up, many concerns we hear from clients in Ukraine is, oh my God, this costs so much money. We basically need to make sure that our cost base comes down and that we find ways to not just through cutting staff, but really look at our cost base and bring that down. One of the things we would like to offer you is, for instance, look at something like energy audits or our workplace environment solutions. Energy audit, because energy prices in Ukraine compared to the rest of Europe are relatively low, but as the government of Ukraine has already indicated, they will continue to rise. So one of the easiest and things you can do now is to look at, where do I spend energy? How could I spend it better? And is there a way of getting technology even funded by other bodies, which I will get to in a moment, that can help me bring that down? What kind of technology should I use? LEDs, insulation material? Is there any way I could optimize my resources that I'm using? The management cost of getting waste in and out of offices or production facilities is also on the rise. Is there a way to save money there? And how do I include my office environment risk procedures? These are things that we think every business organization, if it's not already on the radar, that's an easy go-to. If you then go 3 to 6 months past and look to the next year, one of the things we would say to you is, let us help you, for instance, look at your risk and COVID-19 materiality lessons. What do I mean by that? What were the key impacts? What was your response? Did you feel your response was adequate based on the impact? What kind of processes, what kind of solutions, communication solutions could be put in place? The review of the lower energy and carbon and waste investment that you might have made now in the next 3 months, how well has that worked for your overall cost base? And then, of course, the big thing, and for some Ukrainian businesses, this already started now, managing the transition of the employees back into your offices. Might it be that some of your employees need to stay at home, create a new working environment? What are the risks? What should you think about? What is the step-by-step guide for you to guide you through this process? And then if we arrive and we're in one piece in 2021 and beyond, then you can start looking at, if you feel you're financially stable, for many people, the organizations, that'll be a dream. You can start reconnecting maybe with the bigger sustainability commitments, the metrics, the reporting, for instance, on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is 2030. How to communicate with all your key stakeholders around the risk procedures that you have put in place, the lessons that you've learned, how you've supported your communities and your stakeholders. And very important, I will repeat that for both social and governance as well, we would strongly suggest a full integration of your environmental, social, and governance risks into your overall risk register or your risk preparedness plan, because those risks might come again. There might be a COVID-20, 21, or something else which is non-financial, but will have a material impact on your viability to operate. So we seriously suggest a full integration of that. If we then go to social, obviously, we've seen that in the media as well. Right now, the well-being of your employees should be put above everything else. Have you got communication protocols we can help you with? We can help you create employee support programs or refine them if they're already in place. How do you communicate with remote production facilities? How do you physically design the work environment on return? Your canteen, you've seen these fantastic pictures from, I don't know, Ferrari or other manufacturing facilities where they have these canteens with beautiful dividing screens, completely meeting the requirements of the Italian government. And how do you continue to support your community? Not just the social projects you might be supporting, but maybe your suppliers as well and others, so that you really can demonstrate the social responsibility. Again, going 3 to 6 months later, evaluate what you're doing now, what kind of lessons that you've learned, monitor or let BDO help you monitor the changes in compliance as we are opening up Ukraine or other countries, And how about assessing procedures and protocols? There's an ISO 45001 or others that we could use in order to prepare for the potential next crisis, or at least integrate that into your risk register. And if you then look 2021 and beyond, digital ecosystem communication and learning protocols for your employees, that's something that we've got experience in, would love to help you. And differentiated plans for working and business travel. Will you continue to have physical meetings, even if it's allowed, even if airlines are up in the air? How can you create a plan that meets both the risks and the opportunity versus the virtual meeting like we are doing today on this webinar? And on governance, well, obviously we are experts in spotting gaps in management for risks, whether there might be environmental, physical, legal, relational, or cyber risks. What kind of communication channel can be optimized in order to inform or reassure the key stakeholders that you have? And then for the next 3 to 6 months, just look at how you can capture the risk in COVID-19 lessons that you have, put it into your governance plan of your board or your management team or your owner, and then try again to manage the transition, because it falls on management and the board and the owners to ensure that there's safe return of the employees, how you manage and stage that properly based on a plan that we could help you develop. Again, as I mentioned before, full integration of the government's risks in your corporate risk register, and let us help you, maybe not just looking at risk, but really looking at where could your business benefit from this particular crisis, and how, by, for instance, going more digital, providing digital platforms, can we help you increase revenue streams and diversify them. And then there's the whole issue and the whole gambit of funding. There are a number of funding options available to Ukrainian companies, whether it's from the EBRD, whether it's from the IFC, from the Ukrainian government itself, or as we've discovered in the BDO International Network, the issuance of bonds, whether they might be green, sustainability, or social bonds, where either the company can issue a bond with the help of advisory from BDO, or the audit will happen from BDO. But there are a number of finance options. Let us help you navigate the labyrinth of options which are available to you, which can support your ESG activities. There are obviously other channels available for pure financial reasons, for pure financial activities and projects. So let us help you do that. And then what we've prepared for you as part of our commitment to governance, and again, I won't go through that in detail, and it's a little bit late if you haven't already done that. I'm sure all of you have. We've created a COVID-19 business preparedness checklist. This is something we from BDO have put in the ether free of charge. This is how we've approached the COVID-19 crisis and how we've managed, and we've put our lessons and our learning into a plan which we would like to share. So as you will receive this presentation, feel free to use it, distribute it as you see fit, because we are quite proud of, and it's worked really, really well for us. And again, good business starts with good governance, and obviously governance is responsible for the continuity, and it starts with a good plan. So that's what we've done. There are a number of other services if you're interested, whether it's strategic development, KPI development, process analysis, life cycle analysis. We provide a number of trainings, developing ESG-based scorecards. We do technical services like environmental impact analysis. We're obviously experts in reporting and audit, and we've covered 24 industries. We are available in 22 countries. And to the gambit, the array of companies we've advised range from multinational entities, SMEs, family-run businesses, and the public sector. So we've got quite a number of other solutions we can offer you. And yeah, so I hope we've given you a bit of a flavor for why we could make a difference to your business now and moving into the future with some of the ESG solution we suggested. We also wanted to quickly let you know that all our training and all our solutions are delivered by our market-leading BDO Academy. This is not just for ESG services, this is also for audit, for tax and other services, but you can either contact me, again, you'll get the slide deck, or my colleagues in the Academy if you're interested in receiving training or getting a flavor for the solutions which are available, which I talked about today. So in summary, ESG is here to stay. Believe it or not, we're in a crisis, but it rears its beautiful head, and it's driven both by regulation and progressive member states and member areas, countries, which will call for the continuance of sustainable development, and by proactive businesses. We truly believe that. Secondly, we believe ESG, in addition to all the traditional compliance and financial risks, will provide an extra layer of protection, both of reputational protection, operational protection, and maybe even legal protection as well. So let us help you provide an additional risk screen for you and help spot opportunities both now and after COVID-19. And we are obviously here with tailor-made solutions for your business to help your organization. And then last but not least, I promised you the best for last. If you'd like to share your email with us on Monday, one of my lovely colleagues will be drawing a lucky winner for 3 hours of free ESG consultation. This could be around gap analysis, funding opportunities from the Ukrainian government, industry bodies, or could just be a micro audit of your existing ESG initiatives. So please send me, and you've got my details there, by 18th of May, which is Monday, your email, and one lucky organization will win. So good luck to you, and hopefully, fresh vitamins, always good. So that's enough for me. I want to say thank you very much for your attention. I hope this was useful for you, and I'm just very curious to hear more about what kind of questions you might have thrown in while I've been talking, and very happy to continue the conversation either via email afterwards, over the next few days and weeks. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to hand over to Bogdan, who will tell me what kind of questions might have been raised. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, Henning. We will now answer your questions that is sent through Teams chat. Please use it. Or we can often open the microphone if you have some comments in the sound. So I have in the chat some answers, but prior to this, I have some upgrades to the poll number 2. Well, the question was how to rate the overall response of the business community to COVID. And for answer proactive, the result was 44, and it goes to 40. For reactive, it remains the same, 32%. And neither, it goes up from 22% to 26%.
Okay, Bogdan, thank you. All right.
And concerning the question, we have for now 2 questions. The first one is from Marina. Henning, COVID-19 will have deep economic impact, as you said. Do you really believe organizations, let alone by governments, and will have the will or money to invest in ESG?
So I would say that, ladies and gentlemen, wouldn't I? I would say absolutely yes. I think if we can look through the fog of the short-term panic of things need to be paid for, and that is absolutely real. I honestly believe, looking at the science, if we just talk about the biggest challenge of all, the man-made climate change and the current impacts and predicted impacts, we really need to ask the question, what kind of world do we want to live in 10, 50, 100 years from now? What kind of businesses do we want to have, and how are they positively or negatively contributing to diminishing the problem or increasing the problem? I think now, as we're all stopping and our economy has stopped breathing for a while, now is the time that both businesses and governments, but also civil society, takes a good hard look at if we were flawed by this COVID-19 virus. Imagine if the even less worst case scenarios of climate change in terms of change in weather, flooding, erosion of soil, migration of millions of people around the world due to the inhabitability of their land areas. How will that impact us and how will we react? This is just a little sample. So I would think, and I am the eternal optimist, in particular, the European Union will continue to push that on the global agenda. And I think that the progressive forces will prevail, but only history will obviously guide me whether this statement was correct or not.
So we have additional questions from Anastasia. Is ESG not a solution for more advanced Western companies? How does this apply to our Ukrainian reality?
Well, very good question. Absolutely. I think ESG needs to be handled differently depending on where you are. You can't look to the United States or progressive European, Northern European countries and say, if I do it exactly like they do it in reporting, in audit, in the number of detail and investment I put, I should be okay. No, we are, if I can use Ukraine, I know we have an international audience, if I can use Ukraine, we need to develop our own benefits based on ESG. Whether that is, I talked about waste management, whether that is the energy challenges or the alignment with this sustainable development goals that our government is promoting, that's where we need to start. And it's not just about the cost saving. It's very much about getting the mindset, the Ukrainian ESG mindset, the business mindset, but also the societal mindset, that it's not just about financial gains, financial success, but it's about having great workplaces, having great work cultures, having communities, having informed and engaged and responsible customers and clients, and just having a resilient society, which resilient businesses are part of. And that Ukrainian flavor will be different than a Scandinavian or Northern American flavor. And we haven't arrived at a template yet, despite me having been here for a number of years. I haven't seen it yet, but I think we will get there. And we will now find, as we pause a little bit, that other values than just, for instance, making money, that's very important, of course, are equally important, and that we require the companies that we work for to have a purpose beyond just being financially successful, but the work and the value that they add to their clients, to their communities, should be demonstrated in some way. And ESG is a way to help create that.
Okay, thanks. We have another question from Olga. It sounds like, can you give some examples of ESG KPIs and how you measure the performance?
Sure, absolutely. So if we, for instance, look at the traditional, if you include human resources under social, a topic which is very much on everybody's lips in the more progressive parts of the world is around inclusion of female professionals in senior management levels. So in Norway, I believe they have a quota where listed companies on the Norwegian Stock Exchange, they need to have at least 40% of their board members and independent board members need to be female in order to reflect the wider workforce in many Norwegian businesses in that case. So a way to track it, KPIs would be, what is your quota of female professionals in management, or for BDO partner and positions of responsibility. On the environmental side, absolutely, that's pretty much traditional. That's about how much waste do you create? What is your emissions profile? Are your emissions that you create, if you're a production facility, or the electricity that you buy, how dirty is it? How much is coal? How much is oil? How much is renewable? That's a traditional. And on the governance side, absolutely, we talked about cybersecurity. We talked about data security. How secure are my clients' data? What kind of KPIs have I put in place that the complaints of breached data governance are being diminished? What kind of KPIs could I set up? So there are a number of very, very elaborate lists of KPIs that you can use. We obviously at BDO would help you with identifying which ones we believe would be the most relevant for you and to your business, and then you can align your plan and how to achieve it and how to assign responsibility accordingly. Thank you, Bogdan.
We have another questions from Rosalina. Henning, I hear and read a lot about the 2013 United Nations SDGs. How should Ukrainian companies best link SDGs with the ESG solutions?
Do you know that? Thank you very much, Rosalina. Great question. I am aware of time. I would just like to say, we can't forget to think long term. We are 10 years away from United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They cover the full spectrum of ESG, whether that's poverty, whether that's innovation, business creation, whether that is environmental protection, or inland or in water, equity and education, and the right of women and human rights in general. I think they are intrinsically linked. So if you were going to create an ESG strategy now that doesn't have any of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals integrated, I would think there's a link missing, because how can you plan for the next quarter or next year if you don't have a long-term plan? And that's obviously something we at BDO could help you with, to get your immediate reporting requirements on ESG linked with the wider goal, so that you can demonstrate what your company contributes to the wider goal, not just in Ukraine or in Europe or on our continent, but globally. And then audit that information and move forward and hopefully be benchmarked against others that don't do it. Thank you, Rosalina. Great question.
And we have a final 2 questions if we got time.
Give me one question, because I don't want to keep people on the call, and then we will get back to the questions remaining.
Okay, the question from Alexander. What is the role of the UA government and local communities for ESG implementation?
Very interesting question. What we see from our clients is, as long as I meet the minimum requirements by Ukrainian law, whether it's labor law, environmental law, or the law of that governs the way you report your financial statements, for instance, then we'll be okay. But I think the government is now changing tack by looking more towards the West. That might be just my perception, by saying that's actually not good enough, because the ESG, which in addition to the mandatory requirements, is mostly left in a voluntary space. And I think we will see that a corporate social responsibility strategy or an initiative from the current government will push businesses, and not just multinational businesses being here, but Ukrainian businesses, to really look at what are the risks to our business viability, our industry viability, but also what are the benefits, so that Ukrainian businesses can start competing, not just on price, but also how they translate ESG activities and initiatives into a value creation proposals to clients outside Ukraine. Because once our markets open, for instance, to the European Union, we will get companies coming in which might rival us on price, but in addition, they have the fully fledged ESG template in their rucksack, so to speak, and thus have a competitive parameter which many Ukrainian businesses don't have. And that's why we want to start early and advise not only our clients, but businesses in general, look at this, see what's material, and start now before it becomes mandatory.
Henning, I have the last question. It's really very interesting and it's practical. If we do have another minute, I suggest to answer it. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
From Martina, how do you think fossil fuel companies may be able to comply with ESG requirements, at least from the environmental perspective, if the nature of this own business is in itself for carbon intensive?
Great question. And my short answer is, if they cannot demonstrate to their stakeholders, those are investors, let's say big companies, Rosneft, Shell, Chevron, Total, Equinor, if they cannot demonstrate to their stakeholders, and I mean regulators, consumers, and others, that they can shift their dirty, and it is dirty, it is vital, and we will have it for many decades yet. But we also know continued combustion of these products will not help decrease the climate change impacts which are provided. So for me, the litmus test for a company demonstrating clear ESG criteria would be, how can I become an energy company of the future? And a great example for me, for instance, would be that Shell, without promoting them in any way, they have now started diversifying, albeit very slowly, into buying up electric utilities in the United Kingdom, so that they not only provide oil, gas, chemicals, but they want to be part of the power market, the electricity market in the United Kingdom. Could it be that the big multinationals or the smaller suppliers could start looking at and explaining to us, in a world of less fossil fuels, how are your services and products still relevant? That to me addresses the environmental impact of climate change. That addresses the social impact. Where will your employees go if they're geologists, if they're chemists or others? And that has a governance function. You tell me, the investor, you tell me, the regulator, you tell me, the employee, of you are planning for the long term, not just maximizing, for instance, profits in the short term. That to me addresses the challenge. And I'm telling you, Marina, I believe it was, that not many energy companies have grasped that nettle, because either they don't have the answer yet, because 2040, 50 is a long time away, although they're saying they want to become carbon neutral by then. But I do think in their annual reporting, as a minimum, we need to read more about how ESG is part of their strategy to transform their business. And unless I read it year after year after year, I need to conclude there is no roadmap currently. And but we want to be progressive. We want to encourage companies, and I think they will eventually come around to it. Because if they're not, the renewable companies or those who are better diversified will outcompete them. So Bogdan, that's it, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Brilliant.
We have all questions answered, so I think we can just close the webinar.
So I just wanted to say a big thank you from all of us at BDO Ukraine for your time today. Apologies for running over by 7 minutes. I hope it was worth your time. As you can see on the slide, you can email me, you can visit our website. Please contribute if you are interested in winning some vitamins, some free consultancy on ESG. Please send us your email or give us permission to use your email by Monday, and we will contact the lucky winner. Check us out on the social media sites. We would really love to get your feedback, and I wish you a healthy and a hopeful and a resilient next few weeks and months. And I hope you will decide to connect with us, and wishing you all the very best. Have a great week, and goodbye from Kiev, Ukraine.